Hey movers, shakers, and the stuck but curious. I'm Freya Gordon, and this is Good Shift, the podcast that helps you figure out what's next in your career and make a move with confidence. Today, we're talking to someone who is proof that you don't have to quit to start. In the studio with me is Amelia Jory, founder and CEO of Dulese, a New Zealand personal care brand on a bold mission to disrupt the industry with all-natural, high-performing products and refillable, eco-friendly packaging. What makes Amelia's story especially interesting is that she's built real traction with Dulese while still working full-time in a high-responsibility corporate role. She's currently a senior brand manager at Fonterra, and she's built Dulese alongside her corporate career, including roles at Zuru and Fonterra. And now she's making a big move, relocating to Sydney to take on a new role at Taylor's Wines, while expanding Dulese into the Australian market. When I hear all of this, I'm really wondering how on earth she manages to balance it all, and why she chose to keep the stability of a full-time corporate role even when Dulese was growing really strongly. So in this episode, we're going to get really practical about what it actually takes to build a brand as a side hustle, where the time comes from, what boundaries matter, what it costs, how to manage uncertainty, and how you know when to make the next bold move. Amelia, welcome to Good Shift. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Let's get into it. So from the outside, your career looks amazing. You've had great roles, amazing progression at some of New Zealand's leading businesses. I think Fonterra is maybe even New Zealand's biggest business. But you still chose to build something else. So what was missing, and can you talk us through how you came up with Dulese?
Absolutely. So I'll start with that question around what might be missing. And I think for me, there was actually nothing missing. I've had a very, very fortunate career where I felt very fulfilled in all of my roles. But I think what started to happen was I saw that I was learning some really valuable skills from different businesses at different sizes and stages. And I started to think about putting that into action for myself. And so I look at Zuru and I learned innovation, agility, and being bold and disrupting, different categories. And then I went into a health company where I learned all about my body and natural health, and then moved to Fonterra where I learned about strategy, systems, processes, stakeholder management, and all of these basically accumulated to a really exciting skill set that I felt like I could actually make a bit of an impact with my own business and something that I was really passionate about, which is natural health and natural deodorant. So just really wanted to see what I was made of.
That's awesome, and I love how you've sort of distilled the different things that you've got from each job. I think that's a really valuable exercise for people wondering where their skill set is and what they've taken from jobs. So what were you feeling at the time when you were thinking about starting Dulese? If it wasn't that something was missing, was it an itch or what was it?
For me, it was that Dulese basically began because I was always getting really upset and irritated armpits, and I would go to hospitals and have my armpits basically x-rayed and also had a biopsy at one stage, and I just sort of thought that irritated armpits was a normal thing. And when I was working at a natural health company at the time, I was speaking to the naturopath in-house about this, and she said, well, have you actually read what's in the back of your everyday antiperspirant and deodorant? And I hadn't, so I turned over the back, and what I read was pretty shocking. All of the ingredients I really couldn't pronounce, and it was essentially like putting a cocktail of chemicals onto one of the most delicate parts of our body, which is our underarms where our key lymph nodes are. And so I started to get curious about natural deodorant, but when I started making the switch, I was always let down by something, and it was either that it didn't last the whole day and I felt like I couldn't feel confident that I'd get through a board meeting, or, just an active lifestyle smelling good, or else the scent was a bit naff, or the packaging just didn't hold up. It was a cardboard container that disintegrated before I'd even used the product. So there basically became a list of things that I really wanted to change about natural deodorant, and just decided that why not give it a go.
That's awesome, and it sounds like you've been through a hectic time with your underarms, and I'm assuming that has been solved now by
Yes.
Dulese. Okay, that's good. We have to clarify that for anyone listening and looking for a new deodorant in New Zealand. So a lot of people think that you have to quit to be serious about your business. Why did you choose to build alongside corporate, and why was that the right play for you?
There's so many reasons. I think the first one is definitely a financial reason. Anyone who started a business will understand how much capital you actually have to put in, especially when it's a consumer good business. There are really high MOQs, particularly if you are doing a packaging that is quite innovative. They don't want to, kind of just bring on anyone and not get reorders. So high MOQs, high capital to begin with. And then if you are a growing business, you want to always be investing in more inventory and investing in your business, whether that's new marketing or new products, and all of that costs money. So by having a job that pays your bills and can allow you to still save potentially on top of that, it gives you a really nice buffer to be able to keep growing your business, but also know that you're taken care of, and so you don't have to take out of your business. But other than financially, I think there's some really great benefits as well. A great example of this is at Fonterra. I am very privileged to work with some really, really intelligent people. When they find out I have a business, they are so willing to help with advice or just give kind of insights or even just try the product. And so I get really great different opinions, which is super helpful as a sole founder. And the other thing that I found is that you get really focused, because I have so many hours in a day, and a lot of them are spent at my day job, that when I come home, I know that I actually have one key task that I can probably get done that night. And so you have to be really specific about what's actually going to drive your business forward. And I think in those early days, it's really easy just to spin your tires and try and do a lot of things. But actually, you want to be focusing on the right things that will actually drive your business forward. So definitely a lot of reasons to keep your job in the early days.
Awesome. And how long did you think about it before you made the leap? And then what moved you from thinking about it to actually doing it?
Yeah. It took years, to be completely honest.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had the idea for a natural deodorant when I was at the natural health company. And to be fair, I probably didn't do too much to actually start the business, but I had the idea. And at the time, I probably didn't have the confidence to actually go and do it. But then when I started working at Fonterra, about 6 months into my role there, I had a pretty major surgery on one of my feet, which meant that I was basically working from home for about 8 weeks. And it meant that in my weekends, I was at home with a cast on, not able to do a lot. And my partner at the time said, why don't you pick up that business that you've told me that you're interested in building? And from that point, it was about a year and a half of formulating, getting the packaging right, setting up the business, creating the brand, and all the other things that go on behind the scenes before we launched in March this year. So all up, you could say it's probably been 2 years before launch, but I probably got serious about a year and a half before we actually did the thing.
When your partner told you, why don't you have a think about doing that business that you've been thinking about, was that an instant like, yeah, I'm ready to get into it? Or did you have to grapple with anything going on in your own head at the time?
I actually got sent a email from a coach of mine, and it was a competition called Bring It to the Boardroom, which is it's a department store, Ballantyne's in the South Island. They do this competition for new businesses where essentially you take your business or your product to them and pitch it, and the winner gets to have their product distributed at Ballantyne's for a year, but you keep all the profits.
That's so cool.
It's really
like a
cool,
Shark Tank kind of thing.
Yeah, really cool initiative. And at the time, I hadn't started the business, but it gave me an end date and a time frame to work towards. And so I pitched to them probably about a month and a half after finding out that this competition was a thing. And I pitched to them purely with a concept and an idea and some mock-ups on a screen. And they were super interested. They really loved the concept. And while I didn't win, it was the proof that I needed that there was a market out there for this. And they said, everyone else has kind of come with a product and act like a business that's already existing, but we think that your product is great, so we'd love to keep in touch. And from that moment there, that kind of gave me I guess, the reassurance to actually just keep pushing. And I'd already come so far to get it to this point that I could present it and just to keep moving it along and see where it ended up.
That is so cool. I love that Valentine's does that, and it's awesome that you got to have that proof point along the way as well. So was there ever a moment where you thought you wanted to have another founder, or were you always happy to be a sole founder? For someone who's going through that process of thinking about it right now, I just think it'll be interesting to have your take.
100%. And sometimes I find myself even still thinking, man, it would be so much easier with a co-founder. But I do think the grass is greener on the other side. I've heard so many stories from good friends that I was speaking to in the process of building Dulese that had begun with a co-founder and their business fell apart because of multiple disagreements and just differences along the way. And what I really enjoy about being a sole founder is that I make all the decisions. If anything goes really well, then that's great, but I also get to learn from any of my mistakes as well. So it gives you full autonomy, you can move faster, and I really enjoy it. And I think that there are so many people out there that want to help support you, that you can just bring in mentors that you can bounce ideas off. Even ChatGPT nowadays, if you really needed to brainstorm, that can help as well. So I really like being a sole founder. I think that it's meant that I have had to upskill in areas that I've potentially not had as much confidence in, which could have been considered weaknesses, that I've then turned around and really tried to master, or at least learn how to be really competent in those areas.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to who you are as a person as well as to whether a co-founder suits or not. I think for myself, I'm not so much the type who would be great with the co-founder. It is always amazing to be able to halve the workload as long as it's a nicely balanced relationship, but you're also halving the influence that you get to have over your baby that you're building, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, so what did and does corporate give you / giving you that you think has made Dulese stronger? Now, I know you mentioned there was having the people around you who have great influence and, are able to give you some great ideas or try your products. Is there anything else that you're gaining from still being in corporate now that you think is helping you push Dulese forward?
A key thing for me has been just confidence. I think for anyone starting a business, the key thing that goes through your head is, what if this fails? And have I just wasted all this money? But when you build up all these skills through amazing businesses like Fonterra and Zuru, you really learn to trust yourself and back your decisions. And I'm really, really grateful that in all of these roles, they've actually given me a lot of autonomy and also really big decisions to be made. Of course, there's other stakeholders at places like Fonterra and things as well, but you learn how people make decisions and calculated ones and what things are the good bets. So confidence has been a really key one from my corporate career. And of course, all the skill sets that go into that. You just understand how to make a really clear strategy and also how to read a P&L and what the financials should look like and what margins are great. And you even just learn from the sales team around you how they pitch to customers and what that sounds and looks like. So osmosis is a strong thing in corporate. Yeah.
Were you intentional about choosing the roles that you have had in the past with the foresight that you might want to build a business, or was that just building towards a different career path?
I never actually thought that I would build a business. It kind of just became an idea that stuck in my head and I couldn't get it out until I just did the damn thing. But I do say that in hindsight, I see that the career choices have really serendipitously, that's the word I'm looking for, led to me starting Dulese. And it's bizarre how I worked at a natural health company, but then also saw how Zuru would take a product in a supermarket aisle and then completely just revamp it and make it something more modern and relevant. So I think that hindsight's a beautiful thing, and all of these have just kind of come together to naturally put me into the position to build Dulese.
What sort of career path were you hoping to build, or were you one of those people that's just, going from thing to thing?
I was definitely wanting to build into a CMO, marketing manager type of role. Definitely always had Fonterra as the number one business that I wanted to work for in New Zealand, just purely because of its size and scale and influence across the globe. And I definitely saw the opportunities to grow within that company. And yeah, it's just kind of, I guess, deterred a little bit now that I'm starting a business and a founder, that your goals and goalposts change.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that just while we're on the topic of understanding what your goals are now, because you have been working in such an amazing way towards that CMO type role, which is obviously still very possible for you, but is that something you're less interested in now that you have Dulese going in your mind? Is it Dulese is the next path and you're really strongly working towards that? I know that you're still balancing corporate at the moment, which we can talk about soon, but is that sort of the dream state to get there, or do you still have the CMO part in your mind as something of a big corporate that you may want to be doing?
Yeah. I've heard this quote that says, if you treat your side hustle as a side hustle, expect side hustle results. And so for that reason, I do want to, at some stage, go all in at Dulese. But I'm also not in a massive rush to do that. I think that building a business is a marathon, not a sprint, and there are always something new that you can learn, especially as you're growing a business. You want to grow sustainably. I know that a lot of people want to have these big viral moments and sell out of their product, but the reality of that is, okay, if that happens, then how long is it going to take you to get back in stock? And then are you going to have grumpy customers because they can't buy from you? And actually, is that going to break your business rather than better it? Is it in a position that you actually want to put the gas down and go for it? And there are still things that I'm learning with Dulese and trying to improve before I really give it 100%. And then when you're in a corporate role, while it might not be the exact category that you're working in, you still just get those cross-pollination and skills that you can always bring towards your business. So when the time's right, absolutely I want to go all in on Dulese, but I'm also just really enjoying the journey, and there's so many cool wins that we've been having along the way that it just keeps my energy really excited and high for the business. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love how you're able to see that as a journey as well. I know it's very easy from talking to a lot of founders to get caught up in the wheel of just running so hard and fast and trying to get on top of things and grow a business. And a lot of people say that it's really hard to be present and enjoy the journey along the way.
That also leads back to the earlier question of why is it potentially good to keep your role when you start a business, is it does help you to feel excited about it. When I open my laptop after an 8-hour day at work, it doesn't feel like work for me. It's exciting because I love it, but I know that when you have all that pressure of this is my one financial income, this has to work, that energy can really quickly shift. And so I guess I want to keep the fizz going as long as I can because it's just really exciting and fun for me.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so it sounds like you've had quite a bit of good advice along the way so far. Can you think of the best piece of advice that you have received that has served you really well to date?
I probably have two. The first one, I kind of can't remember who it was from, but it was when building the business. And it's quite a common one where they say, whatever timelines and budgets you have, double them. And when I was told that, I was like, surely I won't have to double the timelines and the budgets. But when you're building a business, inherently something will move and shift, and you will have to either put in more time or money to get it to where you want it to be for launch. So that is definitely one to keep in mind. And if that happens to you when building your business, it's normal. Don't freak out. And then another one is probably more around a values piece for me. And this was actually from Ms. Anna Mowbray when I worked at Zuru. And I remember one day she offered to give me a lift home after work, and we were in her car and we were talking about a challenging stakeholder that I had, and she gave me this piece of advice which is still in my notes app to this day, and it says, when they go low, you go high. And I was thinking, what does she mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering the same, so I'm looking forward to you explaining it.
And she basically just said, you're going to meet people that are challenging, but you never need to go down to their level. You keep your integrity high and just act as if, you know, the way that you would want to act anyway. And what will happen is you'll notice one of two things. One, they'll either have to come up and meet you on your level, or 2, they'll stay at their level and they'll look like a dick. It was actually just such great advice, because I think that that can be a great motto in corporate and in building a business, that you are going to come up to challenging like obstacles or people, and if you maintain your integrity and keep your values, I feel like you can just keep your head high and sleep easy.
Those are wonderful pieces of advice. Thank you for sharing. So if someone is sitting on an idea right now, what do you think is the smallest I trust myself move that they should make next week?
It does depend at what stage you're in of building a business, but the one place that I tell people to start, and where I started, which is a classic Otago uni place to start, was I Googled business model canvas, and I essentially download what is a one-pager, and it has different sections in it. I like to print mine off so that I'm off my computer, go pen to paper and fill it out quadrant by quadrant. And what this basically does is it gives you a really stripped back and simplified business plan, and so you can see what it would actually take to build this business, and you'll start to get a really quick idea of, is this viable, and is this something that I feel like I can do? And if not, then you can talk to people that might know a little bit more about that specific quadrant on the business model canvas that you're getting stuck on. And that was where I started. It helped me to understand potentially how much money I needed to put into it, how much effort was going to be required, what stakeholders, which teams I'd need to get involved. So yeah, I really like it. It's like a bird's eye view of how you want to build your business.
That's super helpful, and I don't think anyone's actually said that before, so I think that's a great starting point for a lot of people. What was the first tiny step you yourself took towards Dulese before it was a business? Like the earliest, okay, this might be something moment, and executing?
It was as simple as buying a natural deodorant for me, because at the time that I started using them, we didn't really have many in New Zealand.
Yeah,
so
I was going to ask if you'd struggled to find them, because I always have in the past.
Definitely. And so I'd actually U-shop them from the States or the UK, and it became a bit of a running joke with my friends who went overseas, and I'd say, can you please bring me back a natural deodorant? So that was my present when they'd gone overseas. But it just meant that I could try so many different natural deodorants, see what was out there, see what I liked and didn't like, and then get a really good understanding of the marketplace and what could be improved.
And what other market research did you do along the way outside of just getting other deodorants?
You definitely have to validate your business idea, and this was something that I did through a SurveyMonkey. So I just created a survey asking people if they'd heard of natural deodorant, what their experience might have been, what they currently use, all these different questions, just to get as much insight as I could, which ultimately helped me frame up what my messaging would be for my natural deodorant. But it also helped me to see if people would actually use this product. What I found really interesting was when I first started doing my validation, I realized that the conversation was, I didn't realize my deodorant wasn't natural. And then by the end of the time that I had built the business, so fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later, I revalidated with another survey, and the question had gone from, I never knew our deodorants weren't natural, to, yeah, I've heard of natural deodorants, but none of them work for me. And so it actually had shown that there was a pretty big shift in the market and people were aware of it. So it wasn't an awareness play that I needed to make. It was about efficacy and why our deodorant was going to perform compared to other natural deodorants.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like the tide is definitely shifting in terms of people becoming a lot more aware of low-tox, non-tox natural products. So hopefully you're in the right space. How much money did you want to have before you started? Did you have a goal for yourself there, or did you just already have, obviously you're working your role, which made it really helpful. You didn't have to save up a certain amount before quitting or anything, but did you have an understanding of how much you needed, or did you just roll into it?
Definitely. I had an understanding of what it would actually take to get the business up, but then what I would say is there's so many hidden costs along the way. So everything from insurance to even just setting up a business, a trademark, regulatory people looking over your product and ingredients, there are costs associated with everything when building a business. But I basically made sure that I had enough for that first run of what is my lowest minimum order quantity that I can get with my packaging, and how can I manage the risk of filling maybe only half of those because our MOQ was really high. So kind of hard to put a number on it because this happened over the span of a few years. But I remember having about 30K when I started the business to be like, okay, this is the amount that I'll need to kind of fill it essentially. And then the other costs had already been paid for. So yeah.
And can you tell me about that first product that you sold?
So we launched on March 24th, 2025. And I just remember I'd organised the socials and the emails to go out. We had been working on the Instagram, just kind of building in public a little bit for probably 6 months prior, because we did think we'd launch earlier than we would, but we had some delays with manufacturing, which honestly always happens. So build that into your timelines. But when we launched, because of the launch assets that we had, the Instagram posts, the emails, we actually had a really, really awesome first week with the deodorant. And we also had some really great influencers that ended up picking up the deodorant and posting it. So yeah, it's, I actually don't even remember the exact first person that bought it, but it was a very exciting first day. But I do remember thinking, what have I done? Like, can I maintain this? Because this is a bit crazy.
As in you sold more than you expected, 100%. So you were wondering, and did that hold?
Yes. For the first few days, I had basically a number in my head of what I wanted to sell for that first week, and we hit that within the first day. And I remember just thinking, I actually haven't tested how to print out a label and then send the product and get it out the door. So I was pretty stressed coming home from work that night. I was like, I have so many products to get out the door. But it was such a fulfilling feeling of seeing all these people who I didn't even know. Like, it was pretty crazy that on day one there were people who I'd never seen their names before buying the deodorant and had just been following along the journey. So it felt really exciting.
And you're talking about we a bit, but it is just you, right?
It's me, yeah.
Yeah, so you're doing everything yourself. So that includes like customer care, socials, ops, selling, marketing.
Finance, supply chain, legal.
Okay, which really begs the question, how are you fitting this all in around a corporate job? Let's just quickly start with when you came home on that first day and you had to figure out how to sticker, ship, put all these products together. You're shipping them out yourself, right?
Yes, at the start I was. We've since moved into what we call a 3PL or third-party logistics, which has been amazing. I definitely recommend starting out by shipping it yourself because it's really invaluable to get those insights of who's buying and where. So you can see on the labels, Jessica from Invercargill bought this, and you start to see where the reach of your business is going. So that's really great. And then you also understand how many people are returning after how long, and you start to get a really good feel for the return rate and the customers and the kind of audience that you're selling to, essentially. That very first day, I came home, and my partner at the time, he really helped because those first few nights I would have been up to goodness knows when packing them, and it meant that our nights kind of ended around 10:30 and they were all sort of sorted with big buckets full of deodorants going out, which was just the coolest feeling. But yeah, as your business grows, I think you realise that you can't do it all, and so I do get in people to support, and I bring in subject matter experts. I have someone who helps me with finance, and so I go, hey, I want to write a new COGS formula for this, and I want it to look a certain way, and basically brief them and then go through it with them as well. So you start to learn that you're one person, there's only so much that you can do, and if there are certain areas that you can get support on to do it, and especially in an early stage, I've had some incredible friends who are lawyers look over our contracts and help support with those because, they are happy to help and they want to support you as well. So definitely leveraging your network where you can of people that might have skills that you are not fully there yet as well helps.
And so you're running this brand while holding down a corporate role. How are you doing this without burning out or without dropping the ball, either letting Dulese become on the back seat or making your full-time role have to, you can't perform as well as you'd want to there because you obviously do have a really serious role in your corporate job as well. I think some people maybe are in a job that they don't really like when they start a business, and so they don't feel the pressure to perform at work quite so much as well. They're 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door.
Right.
Whereas from what I'm hearing and what I understand about the role you have to be 2 feet in the door while you're at work.
Definitely. And I love my job. I still do. And I do want to still perform at that. And I think as someone who always wants to be kind of going above and beyond, it is quite hard to almost just know that you just have to do your job at that point. So I think you do reset your kind of boundaries with your day job. But that said, you get so focused. I just know that when I'm in the office for work, I'm there to work on that and I just get things done. And I actually think it's made me more efficient at my job. I spend less time kind of procrastinating. Yeah, getting coffee, doing those sorts of things. You just know that you have to get in and out. And then on your lunch break, you check your Dulese emails, you reply to customers, you make sure that everything's just ticking along. And then you know, okay, at night, this is my most pressing task that I'm going to absolutely attack. And then once I do that, you know, there's kind of a wee reward at the end of a great night's sleep or you know, a nice wind down evening routine as well. But I certainly have my non-negotiables that help keep me sane as well. I really enjoy going to the gym in the morning, and I go there and I don't have headphones. It's just me in the gym, and it's quite meditative for me. And then I also love to meditate before bed. So there are these certain, I guess, rituals that I do that help to ground me as well, which is good because do less is all about, you know, it's in the title. It's about like doing basically ingesting less chemicals, consuming less and stressing less and overall doing less. And I feel like I'm not doing the brand justice if I'm out here burning out as well.
Yeah, I really love the concept behind the brand, and I think it's something that everyone is really drawn towards in this day and age because it's always do more, do more, do more. Could you talk us through a typical weekday? What time you usually start in the day, what time you usually finish up? And I'd love to hear the weekend too.
Yeah, awesome. So a normal weekday, my alarm would usually go off around 5:45, and then I either start by journaling, just getting some ideas out on paper. You'd be really surprised what comes through as soon as you wake up. And that's just a practice that I've started in the last 4 months, and I love it. It's very, very helpful.
Have you read the book The Artist's Way?
That's why I did it.
I was wondering if that was it.
Yes, yeah. I did the full course, the full 12 weeks, and it just changed everything. My insights, my creativity, it was just flowing. So I loved that.
Before we go down, so we don't have to go down the track of the artist's way, before we move on, for anyone who is wanting to get back or to delve deeper into the creative side of themselves, you can probably explain it better because I haven't finished the course, but highly recommend the book The Artist's Way. Can't remember who it's by, but there's only one on the internet, so you'll be able to find it. And is there anything you want to say about it before we jump back into your day?
I think one thing that it did for me is I stopped seeing it as marketing and building a business and started to see it as a way of expressing myself and the things that I'm really inspired by. And you see that come through with cues to nature and New Zealand and certain ingredients, and even just the ethos of the brand of doing less but better. And yeah, the Artist's Way has just really helped me to view building a business in a more creative and fun and playful way.
And essentially it's just, well, one part of it. The biggest part is morning pages, doing some writing, as Amelia just mentioned, ideally first thing in the morning, free writing without any prompts or constraints to get out a whole lot of ideas and really unpack what's in your mind. So a very cool process.
Yes, the one other thing you are meant to do is have an artist date once a week. So you take yourself, you're not meant to go with anyone. On an artist date, this could look like a walk in nature. It could look like going to a museum or an art gallery. For me, it was playing basketball some days or shooting hoops. It really just depends what your hobbies are and what you're into. But you find that when you're on those artist dates, you can also get some really cool ideas that come through as well. So highly recommend even just giving those two practices a go for a few weeks and see what happens.
Yeah, it's super inspirational. Okay, so you've started your day well with your morning pages, and what happens after that?
Yeah, so I go to the gym. I typically do weight training. I just really enjoy the low impact, but working the muscles. I also don't listen to headphones. I like to have the mind to muscle connection, getting really into a meditative state, come home, have breakfast and get ready for the day. I often switch it up between working from home and going into the office, which also helps with building a business as well, in case there's a certain task in the day that you need to take care of, like going and visiting your 3PL or something like that. But yeah, a day at work, you're pretty much at your laptop. I don't really move from my computer screen all that much, except, at lunchtime, obviously have food, try and do a walk around, that sort of thing. And also check my emails, just make sure that I'm replying to anyone who's inquired about Dulese or has questions in a pretty quick time. I think that that's a really important thing for customer service, is just making sure that your people are heard and also treated really well. And then I usually like to walk back from work so that I have a little bit of a wind down time, cook a nice nourishing dinner, and that is kind of my time to just reset, chill out, let my mind settle. And then once I've had dinner, I usually bribe myself to do my business by making myself some sort of dessert and cup of tea, and then I go and sit at my desk and plug into Dulese. And as I've mentioned, I usually try and have one or two key tasks that I want to get done that night. So it might look like reporting on our paid ads, or it might look like inquiring with a new manufacturer, whatever that it could be. And then I just kind of tick those off. And I think a really key part of building a business is getting really good sleep. So I make sure I do a nice wind down routine, which usually looks like having a shower, reading a book, meditating and sleeping, and turning your phone off, which I'm not perfect at, but we try.
The core takeaway for me from that is when you're doing your time in the evening on Dulese, that you're making it task-based rather than hours-based. I think it's so easy to say, I'm going to spend 3 hours, and then you can just do crap for 3 hours and sort of fluff around being busy but not actually getting stuff done. So I really like that approach.
And there are days that you feel really excited to go and sit at your desk, and there are other days that it's a little bit harder because you might be tired, but I just give myself like a 30-minute window. I just go, okay, just give this task a go for 30 minutes, see what you can get done, and chances are you keep going with that task. And sometimes I end up staying on my laptop too late because I just get into the flow of doing something, and it might be the task that I didn't want to do, and then I'm like, whoa, finances are really fun today.
And so what about the weekends? Are you using that time for Dulese as well?
Definitely. I
and
think
how many hours do you think, or how many tasks, or however you want to frame that, are you doing in the weekend on each day?
I would say that if you are starting a business, you do have to be prepared that you will sacrifice your weekends. But for me, again, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. I love doing it. But what I do try and balance is just to make sure that I have some time to switch off. So usually when it comes around to Saturday, I've obviously worked a full week. I've probably been pretty go. So I want to try and just take the Saturday morning to just relax, do something for me, whether that's a Pilates class, a nice long walk, cooking some really nice pancakes, hanging out with a friend, getting a coffee. All of that stuff is really important to just basically fill your cup back up, because you actually cannot pour from an empty cup in a business. It will show. Your energy will show. And then I kind of just go off how I'm feeling. If I feel like I can do a bit of work that afternoon, cool. There's kind of some days where I'll feel like, all right, I could get in front of a camera and I could do some content for Dulese. Let's do that. Or that's the last thing I feel like doing on a Saturday, so I'm going to go and do the emails for the next month. And you just kind of figure out based on what you need to do, but also your vibe for that day. I also find that I go out a lot less. Like, I don't particularly drink that much anymore, because realistically I still have to be up on Sunday and doing Dulese, or else doing something to set myself up for the week ahead. I really love meal prepping, because I find that just removes so much head noise and extra pressure for me throughout the week, and then I can just have that extra time back to work on Dulese throughout the week. When you know that it's really up to you to drive the business forward on a Sunday morning, you no longer feel like having heaps of wines on a Saturday night.
Yep, totally get that. It makes it hard to get a hell of a lot done the next day.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's really helpful to understand. Thank you so much for running us through that in detail. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are at work and who you are when you are at Dulese? Is it the same person, or do you feel like you're switching into completely different Amelia modes?
I'd say it's pretty much the same. The branding and ethos is something that throughout time I really embody with my life choices as well. And that whole do less but better feeling, I've been through a lot of different times in my career that I felt burnt out or just really exhausted. And so that is quite an anchor for me to just know that you actually have to take care of yourself. And sometimes it's about doing less to show up better later. It really helps me to think back to that brand positioning. But then at my corporate role, I'm much the same. I really believe in showing up as yourself. For the most part, they get all of me.
And so you have resigned with Fonterra because you're moving over to Sydney. I'd like to hear a little bit about that process of resignation with Fonterra. Obviously, this has been a huge part of your career, and it sounds like you've had an amazing time there. And it's super relevant because so many people listening are wanting to resign. So could you tell us a little bit about that process of resigning? Was it easy, hard, and are there any things that you think really helped you get through that process relatively smoothly?
Yeah. I'm really lucky that my manager, Rachel, and I have a really great relationship, so I could be really honest with her. And I had started to get the idea of moving to Sydney a few months ago, and I was pretty honest with her about that and just said, look, I'm kind of needing a change and I'm thinking I want to move to Sydney, and originally discussed to see if Fonterra had any options to kind of move trans-Tasman with the business, which at the time they didn't, which was completely understandable. I've decided to change where I live. The business doesn't need to. But yeah, then I just kind of started to look at what else might be out there. And a big part of me moving to Sydney is to take Dulese over to Australia as well. We've already had a couple of wholesale accounts come on board, so we're at the clean beauty market and at a really gorgeous retreat called Gaia, but this is all without doing any marketing or any attention given to that market, and so I'm really excited to be on the ground to build that. So it started the process of me looking into what other roles are out there, and yeah, we've just accepted a role at Taylor Wines, which I'm starting on Monday next week, so it's all go.
A really quick transition. So are you still at Fonterra like this week?
Yes, this is my last week.
Okay, can you explain to me why you didn't have like a few weeks off in between to even just like put some more into Dulese in that time?
It really just worked out that my resignation period took me to the date that Taylor Wines wanted me to start. The role at Taylor's is a 6-month contract, which is a maternity cover, and it's just a really nice transition to get me across to Sydney to see how the business and I fit, I guess. But also it gives me that freedom of, if I wanted to go full time with Dulese in 6 months, then that could be an option because that wraps up naturally then as well. So it just kind of all made sense, fell into place a little bit, and there just wasn't the opportunity for a few weeks off. But I've just come back from a couple of weeks on holiday in Central Otago, so I do feel nice and refreshed anyway.
Oh, amazing. Well, on holiday probably from your corporate job, not from Dulese.
Yes.
I'm sure that things didn't stop over that time. Can you tell me about one habit or system that you think really makes the side hustle possible that might be helpful for others to hear?
I think it's all a bit of test and learn in the beginning, and I think an example that I probably have is I've obviously learned a lot about taxes and GST, and for me, learning how to file a GST report was something that was completely foreign to me until I started Dulese. I mean, you wouldn't need to unless you had a business. And now I've just learned that actually that task feels so much less overwhelming if I just put aside a couple of hours at the end of every month and get all my GST up to date, rather than leaving it until the 6 months and my GST is due. So you start to learn about how much time you need for each task and what frequency you need, and you start to just kind of get into these automatic routines to keep the business moving forward. And there'll be certain times where you're really focused on one aspect of your business. You might be trying to improve your supply chain and you want to give that more of your focus and kind of let everything run as business as usual. And I try and only have one thing in the business that I'm really focused on going after or improving, and everything else is BAU. Otherwise, it can just get all a bit much.
And how do you decide what that thing to focus on is? Do you have any help from anyone, like a mentor, that's helping you define what that is, or are you coming up with that on your own?
A bit of both. I have multiple mentors, which is really lucky, and I think that I am able to tap into these mentors for different things. I have a really great support with one of the co-founders of Pure Mama, and she is a finance whiz. And so when I have any finance questions, I ask if I can have an hour of her time, and that really, really helps. And then there's another mentor of mine who I worked with at Fonterra. Her name is Dulese, and she helps me with marketing and strategy. And you just learn to pull on different people for their different strengths, and that ultimately helps you to build a better business as well and gets more brains across it.
And with a mentor, going about finding them, I feel like it's something people always struggle with. They feel awkward asking people, or they don't know where to find the right people. So how did you come up with your mentors?
I find the idea of asking a mentor to be your mentor a bit outdated. I think they kind of just become that, and you don't need to put a label on it. And that's what kind of trips people up, right? They probably have someone that is interested in helping them, and they are happy to go for a coffee with them every other month, but they don't necessarily need to be asked if they're their mentor. And all the people who I just named, I've never asked to be my mentor. They've just got that title, whether they like it or not. But, I have had people that I have asked to be a mentor as well. So it just kind of depends what your relationship is like with that person. And I don't think a mentor needs to be someone that you meet with every week. It can be someone that when they have time, you can catch up with them, because a lot of the people that I love taking advice from are building their own businesses, and they got their own stuff to do.
Yeah, they're busy.
They're busy. Fair enough.
And when someone is helping you like that, a lot of people feel like they need to be giving something in return. How do you go about feeling okay with taking someone's time to do that, or do you do anything?
In some instances, people have offered, which is amazing, because you know that they are just genuinely keen to help you. And I always pinch myself when people do that, because I'm like, little old me and little old Dulese, like, that's so cool that you want to help with that. But also, I think if you're just a good person, then people want to help you. Like, if you go out for coffee with them, buy their coffee. Or if you go out for lunch, get the lunch bill. It can just be a really small gesture. Or if it's Christmas and your business decides to do like some merch Christmas gifts, send them some as well. So I think there can just be little things that you do along the way to let them know that they're appreciated. And they can even just be saying to them, this is so helpful, thank you so much for your time, because people want to help other people. It's human nature.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with that. And I think those are really helpful tips for people as to how to think about it, because I know that those are things that when I've been talking to a lot of people, are there blockers for working with a mentor or a non-mentor, whatever people want to call it, just sort of the simple things that make people feel a bit stuck with that process. When we don't want people to feel stuck with that, because obviously you can get so much value with having those relationships.
And sometimes it's nice for them too to get out of their day job and think a little bit differently and think about your business and what they would do in your position. It actually can be beneficial for them. You know, that whole thing of when you teach someone, usually you learn something better. It can be the same for mentorship. They are kind of improving their skills by helping you as well.
Yeah, totally. So for the doubters out there, what would you say is the biggest myth about building a business while you're still employed?
I think it's what I probably touched on a little bit earlier around everyone wanting their business to go absolutely gangbusters from day one. And the reason why I say that is because it's actually nice to make mistakes when there's not a massive audience watching. And it's
so true.
And you find the cracks in your business that you wouldn't have found and wouldn't have been such a big deal if there's tens of thousands of people ordering from you when there's just a couple of hundred in the beginning. And it makes people, if people see that you're a new business, they're also a lot more forgiving and you can make those mistakes. So yeah, I think growing too fast can actually be a bit of a myth in business. You want to grow in a way that's sustainable and that you can actually build your business to withstand in the long term.
That is super helpful, thank you. And I think that's really great for people to hear who feel like they may be not doing it properly if they're not going full in. I think this whole conversation has just been so helpful for people to see that you can be building something amazing and really intentionally while still supporting yourself financially, if that's the main goal, or continuing to be surrounded by other great people in business or learning along the way. So can you tell us a little bit about your plan for Dulese? Obviously, you're taking Dulese to the Australian market, which is very exciting, and you're thinking about potentially going all in 6 months or so. So I would love to hear what's on the radar.
Yeah. So the next big thing for Dulese is definitely getting over to Australia and setting up the business there. I think what a lot of people don't realise is you actually have to set up a full separate business. So it's an Australian business number, Australian tax number, your whole supply chain gets redone. It's an
More fun
ordeal.
admin.
Yeah. So you kind of run two businesses, kind of. So that's going to be a really big focus. We've also been testing a second fragrance for our deodorant, which we're getting to hopefully the end of. It's been a long time coming because I want to make sure it's perfect or close to before we launch. And we're also looking at moving into personal care adjacent categories. So what other spaces can natural play in when it comes to personal care, and where does Dulese want to show up? So if you want more tea on that, you'll have to follow us on our TikTok or our Instagram.
Oh, that's so exciting. Looking forward to seeing what's going on there. It sounds like it's good that you're on a 6-month contract role, because I feel like you're going to need more of yourself for all of these new things. Okay, we'll move into some wrap-up questions. How has your definition of success, if at all, changed over the past few years?
I think what's changed is not comparing myself or my journey to other people. The 20s are such an interesting years where you have some people that are getting married and having babies. Then you have other people who are moving to London and really going out every weekend and enjoying themselves. And then you have people who are starting businesses. And the thing is, you can't have it all at once. And I think you just have to make the decision based on what feels right for you and what success looks like for you. And so I always say, when you look sideways, you're off balance. So you don't need to compare yourself to what everyone else is doing.
Oh, I think that's my favourite quote that you've said today. If someone is listening with a product idea but no clue where to start, what would you tell them? I know you've already given us a few things, but how about you distill it down to the one thing that you want to leave people with?
Get really curious and follow your curiosity. I'm a big fan of this. And this could be something like a hobby that you just feel called to try. You might want to pick up golf or ceramics. They're just a few of mine. But basically what happens is when you follow these curiosities or these hobbies, you'll probably find a really cool business idea within something that you're passionate about. Like maybe a ceramic wheel isn't set up the way that you want it to be, and you can think of doing something better. And if you are just curious and meet things with questioning and understanding and learning, then I feel like you're in a really great position to build something awesome.
Oh, I love that. And what about a book, podcast, or other resource that you would recommend for people wanting to make a career shift or start their own business?
The Artist's Way was going to be mine, so we touched on that.
Great.
But I will say The Creative Act by Rick Rubin is also a really good one.
So that's on my hit list.
That's a goodie.
Okay.
Really love that.
I'll read that this Q1. And where can people connect with you and follow Dulese?
So you can follow us at du.lese on Instagram. We couldn't get the Dulese Instagram handle. We're working on it. Or else you can follow me on LinkedIn, Amelia Jory, and of course, dulese.com.
You're having to grapple with some person who got the Dulese name like 20 years ago or something.
I have DM'd them because they have not been active for 7 years.
Oh, that is so painful.
It's so painful. One post as well, and it's like, yeah, it does my head in. I've tried everything.
Like, give it to me.
Yes.
Okay, that was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
So
and we know
welcome.
your time is very valuable. There's a lot going on in all of your days, and very excited to see how Dulese goes in Australia. So good luck for that move and finishing out your role at Fonterra and moving to Taylor Wines. So much on for you, and very excited to see what happens next.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.